Okay, there's the record. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are around the world. Welcome back to another Telegram team chat. I'm your host, Michael Norton, Global Community Manager Extraordinaire. And today we are joined by the wonderful Agatha Banach. How are you today?
I'm very good, thank you. I must say I'm a little bit stressed. I'm an introvert myself, so being in front of so many people is not a thing I do often. However, I do quite well with executive team members, and they're much more scary, so hopefully it's a much funner crowd to be in front of.
Yes. These people, they all love you. They'll praise you afterwards. Okay, so first let's get started with some simple questions. How long have you been with Solve.Care?
Oh, all right. Thank you for simple questions first. I think my very first project with Solve.Care was 2018. It feels like ages ago, with COVID and everything going on later, but it was a Boehringer Ingelheim project that I've been working on as a very first thing with Solve.Care. I did have chronic diseases in my family myself, so that project's very personal to me, and I was so excited and motivated to be able to be part of that solution. And I've been supporting Solve.Care in different capacities ever since.
Very cool. You were actually the first Solve.Care team member that I met in person because you were at the same hotel as me when I went to Eve. Yeah.
It's been such
very
a long
nice.
time.
So how did you find Solve.Care?
So it's actually a very interesting story because I had a chance to meet Pradeep way before I started working with Solve.Care. I think it was almost at the very start of my career. And back then I was planning to work with financial solutions rather than healthcare. And also during our very first conversation, because I was working with financial solutions, I told him that I was skeptical about cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology. So it was a very reverse view than you'd think a person that gets to work at a company like that would have. But in that maybe an hour-long conversation, he has described Solve.Care and the way he hopes to revolutionize healthcare. And he really opened me to not only to the idea, but the world of opportunities that are out there that I haven't known existed. That he really pulled me into that world and reversed my view completely. So having personal experience in healthcare, because before that I had no professional experience, I felt that he proposed a solution that kind of solved for the inefficiencies in the current system. And so when the opportunity came up that the project started and they needed a team member that would allow them to lead some of the parts of the project, I took the opportunity and joined the team.
Very cool. Very cool. I love that story. It's such an interesting way to learn about it. Yeah. And speaking to Pradeep, I mean, he's such a kind person, such a great speaker. It doesn't matter who you are, he will sell you on Solve.Care.
I mean, honestly, what he really does is, and I see, I've met quite a lot of leaders of different companies, and he really cares about finding the solutions to the work that Solve.Care does. And he really, he has also personal experiences in his own life, which make him so enthusiastic about bringing those solutions out there. So I think that empathetic view for the work is really making him a different leader than many others out there.
So if this is your first time on the Telegram team chat, the reason we do this is because most projects, I mean, there's some projects out there where the team is completely anonymous. There's a lot of other projects where you go to a website, you see a picture on the site, but you never get to see or know the person. So we like to show that we have a big team here. We're very real people, and we're full of very incredible staff. So we allow you guys to ask questions to first pick the guest and then ask questions to the guest. So we have about 9 questions that Agatha has picked here, and so we're just going to jump right into it. So the first question we have is from Crypto Badu, and he asks, as a senior product consultant, how do you stay updated with the latest trends and technologies in healthcare and product management domains?
All right. Well, I read a lot. You could say one of my hobbies is really my work, because you have to stay on all your reading market news after the working hours. And you really have to love what you do and love the industry you're working with to be able to catch up on all of the latest information. Otherwise, especially with such fast-moving fields, you kind of stay in the back and you don't know what's happening and you don't know what competition does. So I read news, books, publications. I watch podcasts like this one. I think it's a really interesting way to find a personal view for what the competition and other companies do out there and how they work. And I think it's also very interesting to see, as you said, that there's humans behind those companies, and they also might be a little scared to start speaking in front of other people, and maybe they will tell you a point of view for their work that you haven't really heard before, and sometimes it opens you to information that is not readily available out there. I also join conferences, and surprisingly, I don't know if many people do that, but I do reach out to people on LinkedIn that I find interesting. When you write, I think it's a little bit less scary than speaking in front of them sometimes. But I find that a lot of them actually reply. Obviously, they can't speak about NDA work. They don't always share the latest news, but they're very keen on giving feedback. They're very keen on giving advice. They're keen on sharing their successes and how they got there. And I find biographies of those people, which are not always, in the form of a book, of an article, but really only achievable by that conversation, highly interesting and useful for building products. I do have also one, especially in healthcare. I have a lot of friends that are doctors, so I do run things by them quite a lot. It makes for interesting breakfast conversations sometimes when I stay at their place. And you'd say maybe I'm a little bit of a workaholic, but when you have a group of friends that you've built over your career that work in the similar field, whether they work in tech or as a doctor or as a nurse or in any other capacity, they really give you their own point of view and allow you to build relationships with that group that will be using your solution later. And that really keeps you on your toes because they know from their own experience being in hospital just the day before what their patients are struggling with, what they're struggling with. And it really allows you to build solutions that maybe even didn't make it into news yet.
Very interesting. What was the last conference you went to?
So I actually had a chance to be in Singapore in September for the blockchain conference.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. Yeah, I didn't know you were with the team with that one, but that's really cool. I really wish I would go to more conferences. I do travel enough. I just don't spend the time to look them up and honestly don't have the time to go to them. But
if you don't have time for the people, there's free drinks involved. So there's always some perks.
The food is hit or
miss. The food is there. So sometimes gift bags, you never know. So
cool. All right. So the next question comes from Anita. Anita is in the chat right now. I see her. She's listening. Lovely. She asks, in your experience as a senior product consultant at Solve.Care, how would you describe your role to someone looking forward to being a product consultant?
Oh, well, if someone asks me for a brief summary in a personal setting, but in a personal setting, not a professional one, I usually say manager of chaos. Which I think is a little bit a cheeky way of describing it, since the work is very organized. But sometimes when you're involved with almost every team in the company and the community and the customers and have so many tasks to manage, it does feel a little bit like you're managing your little chaos and organizing it as much as possible. What it really entails is taking the pain points of the customers, all the clients, on all that market knowledge that you build from your friends, from the community, from the group, and putting it into a product based on that, building it with your team as well, that brings a relief to that pain point. And it's mostly about, that's kind of like the main short summary. And it does have all those little points, like it has operations, security, efficiency. You have to think about cost effectiveness, which is actually a very big thing with investors and with executives. Product lifespan, making sure it's going to be long. And you have to build a team that will help you do all of that because you can't do it on your own. So it is quite a lot of different items, and that's why maybe I'd say it feels a little bit like chaos. But when you get to it and when you love your job, I think you really find that energy to go out there. So to give you a little bit more on just what I do within Solve.Care, with as much as I can say, I focus here on technical optimizations, permissions, security, network administration, and some exciting new features that I can't mention just yet.
Love the little teaser. Managers, I love that one. I think Gordon is here, and the other community managers, we feel that.
Well, yes, you feel a little bit like a Marvel movie star in a sense. You have to think through, what can I mention, what can I not? All the features you've been working with. I want to make sure that the details are properly kept until we launch the product. So it does feel a little bit when you watch those Marvel movies where they're like, what can I tell you about the movie? It feels a little bit similar.
All right, let's jump into the next one. The next one comes from Collins. What skills or attributes do you believe are crucial for a product consultant to succeed in healthcare blockchain sector?
I must say I'm very happy with this question. I have a team I train as well, and those are the things that I tell them the most. First one is know your field well. And I think this one is something that often product managers fail at, because we sometimes strive at the technical part, making sure we do the right templates, making sure we have the right agile process. There's a lot of technologies, agile, waterfall, making sure you know all the abbreviations, which I must say I personally am not the biggest fan of. It really doesn't take that long to say the full word. But know your field well, because that really where your experience will come from, and that's how you will build your clients, further on, even if you decide to go to different companies. And there's a lot of people that know the right template. Right now, we have so much help from AI options out there with so many fields where you can download all the templates, download all the processes. But there's not that many people that understand exactly what healthcare entails, and then what the customers need, what the patients out there and doctors will require to have. So it's really important to build the knowledge of the field rather than focus on technicalities. And I really think it applies to any place, whether it's healthcare, whether it's renewable energies. Whenever you work, you really have to be passionate about the field. And if you don't like the field that much, change the place you work at, I would say, because I think it really takes passion to survive in a workplace where you sometimes work 16 hours a day. To give you a few more, if we have time, I think one other item is have empathy for your customers and for your group of people that you're working with. Because if you're not able to put yourself in their shoes, you will not create a product that will resolve their issues. It's similar as in, if you don't feel that the shoe hurts, you will not, how will you fix the shoe for them to make it work? And similarly, I think we often forget the soft skills in this job, because it is a highly technical and highly demanding job. But we really need to go back to basics and go back to the customer, sit with them, understand that we're feeling what we're solving for, to build that background of the solution that we're creating.
Interesting. You said to know your field very well. Well, we just did an X Spaces a few weeks ago, but the person was a healthcare background. And at first, I do a lot of research. I've been with the company for 5 years, but very quickly it just went right over my head. So down, I'm like, I am, on the marketing side. I'm not on the healthcare side, But yeah, it's very. Healthcare is a hard one to really truly understand, because it's so big. It's such a big industry.
I agree, but I also disagree. I think it's a little bit of a myth that you have to be, understand what doctor tells you about this specific heart disease that they're describing for. I don't think it's that complicated. I think actually often people overcomplicate it a little bit, because the issues that patients have and the doctors have, when you think about it and when you talk with them, they're really not issues that you think we would have in 21st century. They're really basics. The problem of getting the right contact with the doctor, the problem of being able to afford a doctor, that you would think that wouldn't happen in a first world country in 21st century. And there's really, when you really start talking with them about, healthcare today, it really shows that the solutions we're solving, the issues that we're solving for, are really not that far away from us being a patient, being a mother, being a child of a parent that may be struggling with a chronic disease. And I think that's really, what allows us to put ourselves with those patients. And I feel when you are building a product a little bit for yourself, which is maybe a little bit personal of me to say, but I think when you build a product for yourself, for your family, and for other, team members or families that you know of. If you have that base of people that you're solving for an issue, there will be a bigger group out there that will also need the same solution, will be happy to use it. So I think, it's not always about understanding the technicalities of healthcare, but just to understand what they're struggling with on the basic terms.
Yeah, completely agree. Yeah. All right. So the next question comes from Ben. Ben asks, what are some of the most common mistakes that product consultants make, and how can they be avoided?
I think one that I see often is sometimes product managers don't understand the boundaries within which business works. So even if you do have amazing, empathy for your customers, you work with them on a daily basis and you want to help, I think it's also very important. It's a little bit like being, a negotiator between understanding what the society needs, what the group that you're solving for, but also understanding the boundaries within business works and is making money, right? So businesses will still want to have appropriate costs, efficiencies, will want to have a specific revenue, will want to work around certain boundaries. And I think I had a very lucky education back in the day where I started my career studying business, and it was a little bit of a course on how basically a whole business should work, which allowed me from my very first job to understand that yes, we need to help those kind of patients with this disease, but at the same time, we need to make sure that they can afford it, and the companies that are sponsoring it or insurance companies are finding that solution affordable. So I think it's really important to understand the numbers. So sadly, we have to, go over those a lot, understand the boundaries. And also, when you know those boundaries, it allows you to stretch them a little bit. When you know the cost is such and such, it allows you to find that little point where you can cut the cost, or where you can, maybe make executive team decide to take that cost because of the benefits it will entail later. That really allows you for negotiating with the team and creates understanding the boundaries creates a more space for you to create your product, surprisingly. And adding to that, because I mentioned negotiation, I think negotiation skills are one of the biggest skills that are needed as a product manager. And I don't always see that they're being used properly in the workspace. And I'm a huge fan of Chris Voss. I don't know if you know, he's a former FBI negotiator, and he has quite a few books on negotiation. I highly recommend for anyone that might be interested in that. But I think negotiation skills, honing them, being able to say no and learning how to say no, if needed, protecting your product, even if it means that sometimes you disagree with someone that is a higher decision maker than you. And being able to also explain in a very articulate way why you're making such a decision.
I do like Chris Voss. I'm trying to see if he's the one that got me into meditation. I think it might be. But I read a book a while back, and it was an FBI agent whose partner was killed, and he was finding him, and he did martial arts and he learned meditation. And then when he finally found his, friend and partner's killer, he was able to control himself and then take him into custody instead of, enacting revenge.
I am not sure. I don't know Chris Voss from that side. I do focus more on his negotiation part of the books, but if it is a real story, I will make sure to make up my knowledge on that.
Yeah, so that started me on that. His book was brilliant about just simple breathing techniques and whatnot. It's healthcare related. So
honestly, also negotiation in general, helpful in any field, whether you're working in healthcare, whether you're working in marketing, whether you're working in any place. I think is very important to have. So, but yeah, a lot of soft skills in product management, which I think people forget.
Yeah, I think negotiation's just big all around in life. It doesn't really matter what you're doing. All right, so the next question comes from Victor JP. He asks, what role do you think community feedback plays in shaping Solve.Care's products and services?
Oh, all right. Well, Mike, I think you'd be probably better to answer that question than me. But if I can describe it in few words, I would say in a sentence, you're our Bible. You know, the community has the knowledge of the market because they are the market. They're they're customers. They might be patients. They are involved with us all along. And I think what is very interesting about community versus customers is when we're working with customers, we're working in a very professional setting, which means not all the feedback is always communicated in a very straightforward way, and we can miss certain items that customers would want us to bring in, but they're not necessarily able to communicate it to us in such an open way as community is. Versus our community can shoot like that, let us know right away, we don't like this, we do like that, and explain to us why. And also they do have, as I said, extensive knowledge of all the market around blockchain technologies, around healthcare as well, because we have a lot of healthcare professionals joining us. So we're literally listening to us we're listening to you all the time. Mike is one of our biggest, I think, leaders when it comes to that, giving us all the knowledge there. And really we have reviews on weekly, if not daily basis to make sure that we have that feedback with us.
Yeah, I think it was Maria that I interviewed, and she was saying when she was talking to her coworkers, she was explaining, we have this community, and they were blown away. They're like, that's incredible. You have this group of people that'll immediately give you feedback, and you don't have to chase users down and things like that. But to go on about feedback, the feedback that you guys have been giving on the Care Wallet has now gotten me into a 3 times weekly meeting to fix the Care Wallet works and how it works. So definitely keep giving that feedback on how that Care Wallet works and how Care Trials is.
Yeah. Make Mike work overtime.
Yeah. All right, let's go into the next one. This one is from Godwin. He asks, could you elaborate on the methodologies you employ when designing and implementing healthcare solutions to ensure optimal user experience?
All right, there's, I think, 3 parts to answer that question. I'm trying not to go over time because I know I speak quite a lot. First of all, we have an amazing UX team that is ensuring that we're utilizing all rules out there for proper designing of our Care Wallet and Care Cards, making sure that the buttons are the right size. There's to break up quickly on the answer and to give you the little frills that we have in our work, and how detailed we are. We are testing every button on the size, making sure that the text is visible enough. There's specific rules of certain, icon has to be this and this size, text cannot be smaller than this, to make sure that everybody sees it. And I think what's very interesting about Care Wallet there is that it is a solution for a quite wide range of customers. So what we're really working on, and it has been a challenge and a great opportunity for us, we're working on making it adaptable to every user demographic and ages. And we're testing on those users viciously to a point where we're making sure, when we're running a specific network, we're putting it in front of a grandma and a 15-year-old, making sure that they can go through the full process and understanding it. And sometimes finding that combination between the two is not the easiest. And I think with the time now after COVID, it is becoming slightly easier because technology use is a little bit more common after, everybody from more elderly communities had to use a phone to communicate with their grandchildren. So they made the work a little bit easier for us. But we're still there making sure that we're testing all possible designs. We're using that baseline that's already created out there because there's an extensive amount of UX knowledge available there that our experienced UX team has. And to add to all of that, not only for the visual side, but also for the side that maybe is not as visible, we're talking with healthcare consultants, making sure that when we work with specific diseases, we imagine on, maybe somebody not being able to use the solution in a specific way on the normal user test because maybe, we're working with a person that doesn't see as well or, is not able to use a phone in the same way as everyday user would. So those healthcare consultants are also really help us in understanding the patients we're working with and the groups that we're working with to understand if they'll be able to use that solution in the state that they are at that specific moment of time.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's very tough to make something for everyone, and healthcare is not easy as well. So, all the different tools and networks that can be there, navigating through all that and then making sure it works for everyone and it's, user friendly. It's a lot of work. So yeah.
There's so many little intricacies. For example, nurses works in gloves. So you have to think that, they might not be able to touch the phone in the gloves. They have to take gloves on, put them back on again, which is not always very time efficient. You will have people like doctors, they will be running around the hospital, so they can't really have the phone in both hands. Like, we when we think of solutions, we don't only think about software, we think of hardware as well. So, they might not be able to run around with an iPad because it's too big, they'll fall into someone. Maybe they're, looking at the phone. Maybe they can't have a phone. So, we're really looking at all those little scenarios that are such, you'd never think of them on a daily basis. You're like, oh, UX, we're going to put a button, click it, it works. And then we really, spend time with those users there saying, okay, if I was a nurse, I'm working with my gloves, I need to take them. Now the other patient calls me, what do I do with my phone? And we really put ourselves in those shoes again there to make sure that the user experience, not only of software, but hardware is efficient for our users and really solves for the solution. Because sometimes you create that app, as I've said, but if you don't put yourself in those shoes, you end up having this customer group not even using it because they've the situation itself that they're in when we were requesting them to use it is not applicable for the app. So
now you're making me want to have. Now you're making me want to have Ahmed on here because his medical background and he's one of the partnership managers, but he's always coming to us like, hey, have you thought of this? Have you thought of that for, the different wallet screens, even our demos? He's like, I can't send these out unless they're perfect, unless they make sense to the doctor. But it's, one of us on the marketing team making it. We don't know, everything. We just make it look, a certain way. It's very interesting.
It seems so easy, but then there's so many little things that we're thinking of that I feel sometimes get lost. I really want them to be mentioned. Similarly, as you said, with Ahmed, like, having, sent too long of a spec and they're like, they will never read it, this SOP, like it's 15 pages, the doctor doesn't have time. So really getting out there and we're really thinking of through all those little details.
Actually, I do see Godwin in the chat. So hello, Godwin. Move on to the next one. The next one is from Chigozi. Chigozi asks, as a senior product consultant, how do you ensure that customers/clients are provided with information and support related to products and services?
I think that ties a little bit to the previous answer in the sense where we've been just talking about that instructions we've been creating that was a little bit too long. We create SOPs, which are some kind of scope of product, making sure that they have instructions throughout the solutions. Creating also solutions that are hopefully quite we've been working with them for such a long time on those little details that we hope that they're also in a large way self-explanatory. But making sure there is still that instruction just in case, making sure that they're accessible, not too long, that they're readable. And honestly, we're also there 24/7 for them when they need us. We have excellent product and support, as the community might know from you, Mike, being available almost 24/7 to the community. Similarly, we have us engaged team for our customers and clients, making sure that if there's any need for support, if there's any feedback that they have a person out there listening to any issues that they might have or experience. And we actually really welcome that feedback and we want to hear it, because if they do have an issue, it means somebody else, some other customer might have the issue. We want to resolve it. We want the solution to be the best there is. So we're there to listen at any time.
It's wonderful. And I hate to go a little off script, but I know you worked with Boehringer Ingelheim. How was that? Was there any insights into that, working with them?
It was an absolutely exciting experience. As I said, very personal project from my side. The team has been so engaged as well in getting the project out there and getting it to the patients. I had opportunity to fly to Arizona a few times to meet them in person, meet also the patients and meet the nurses that work with the solution. And I think it's been one of the most thrilling projects I've been on so far. And that is because I got to experience the community that has been working with the projects to the most of it.
Okay, so let's jump in. We have 2 more questions. Looks like we're pretty much on time, so you're doing great. Yeah, the next question is from Jay. They ask, within the healthcare domain, what specific challenges or opportunities do you foresee for Solve.Care?
I see a really big opportunity currently with the development of AI that we're seeing, in different markets, and with development of being able to get help out there a little bit sooner thanks to that technology. I think a lot of us here and a lot of people out there struggled with getting to doctor on time, getting the information on time. And one of the big pain points in healthcare right now is getting appropriate information about the disease or the problem they have at the moment. Patients will go to Google. The Google does not always give the right information because there's a lot of information out there. Then they'll go to doctor and doctor has to actually de-school them on what they found out in Google. And then, school them again on what actually the disease is. And the whole process, rather than taking, shorter, is actually taking longer through that. And what I really hope for is that we will be able to work with AI to a point to create a solution which allows us to give medically appropriate information, but in a much faster manner than a patient is able to reach a doctor for. Because there's also a lot of little things that patients struggle with, that do not necessarily require them to go to a doctor, and or maybe, do not necessarily require them to rush out there and get emergency help. But when they do, they really block out the patients that require that help a little bit sooner. And I really hope that AI will allow us to create a reliable source, but I think reliable is a very big point there, to instruct those patients what to do next while allowing the fairly scarce resource of doctors being utilized when they're really needed. So I don't see them as ever cutting out doctors, just to make clear of that. I see them as an amazing help to actually get the basic information to patients in a reliable way and then guiding them to a doctor when necessary. And not only that, also there's so many other things with making sure, especially the patients that do not have family to support them, that they're getting the reminders they need, that they're getting the support they need, that they're getting, making sure medication they need. There's so many different opportunities out there with AI that recognizes medication in case a bottle spilled to an old grandpa, or an AI that will remind a mother of 3 that she has 5 appointments for her 3 children at 5 different times, and maybe even will help it arrange in a way where she has to only go once rather than go 3 or 4 times with her group. So I really see there's so many opportunities, and we've been already touching on the subject a little bit, as much as I can say. So I really hope that we'll get to utilize it a little bit more very soon.
I completely agree. We had a X Spaces with Douglas Heinzman from BRI, the Blockchain Research Institute, and we spent almost the whole hour speaking about AI and all the different ways and how AI can really distinguish from, just simple facts, figure out what solutions work for you. He spoke about how doctors nowadays, if you have a certain illness or certain, symptoms, they go off of that, and then they have a generic approach that they do. If they have this, we do that. But AI can really funnel it down to like this specific person with this background and this medication and this can, try this approach. And AI's already come up with some approaches and some new medications that we never even thought about before. So very interesting. I love that idea.
To add on that, Mike, yes, you're very right. There's a specific guideline that most doctors are using in case of patients. Of course, they need to know all the details. But when you call a nurse, I don't know how it is right now in different countries, but in UK, you usually first call nurse to let her know, what's happening, and she defines how quickly you need to see a doctor. And when you call those nurses, those ladies work 16, 18-hour days. They go off the script. They understand certain details, but I'll tell you, they go off the script. If you will tell them that you have a fever 37, it's like, if it's not 37.1, the guideline says you don't have to go to doctor yet. And I really think AI can help with that, relieve some of their work and not exchange them in any way, but just really, be of support there to really, guide the patient that really need towards the doctor, towards the nurse, and support with those with patients' little queries that can be resolved anyhow. Yeah.
Okay, so last question we have is from Rosemary. Rosemary asks, what's a common misconception about healthcare technology that you'd like to debunk?
Oh, I think the biggest misconception is that healthcare technologies do not have to be complex. And you know, I think often when we think about healthcare, we think, you know, of this, you know, big, you know, complicated field. As we, you know, kind of went out in the conversation where, you know, we think, you know, we need to know the intricate details. But all the most basic issues that patients have are really coming down to that like little list of, you know, most common problems. And of course, the solution, that's such a solution would not apply to all, but I think to 80% of solutions, they really don't have to be complex. Patients want to make sure that they're, you know, we have to make sure that they follow up with the medication, that they listen to the guidance, that they have appropriate guidance in case they forget, in case they lose that little piece of paper when they had how often they should take their medication or whatever they were supposed to do. Have a little reminder when they, you know, are a little bit lazy, to, I don't know, put that cream on that little spot that they were supposed to put on every day, but who forgets, right? So I think big misconception is that the solutions that we're bringing have to be complex and have to be mystical and have to be revolutionary. And I mean, everybody loves a revolutionary solution. Everybody loves, you know, when something completely new comes out there. But frankly, a lot of the healthcare technology out there is in the world currently is a little bit obsolete. And I think what we really would succeed with is making simple solutions to those little problems that would actually resolve, I think, 80 to 90% the issues that patients are struggling with out there.
That's very cool. Yeah, I agree with you. There's a lot of little things that make people's lives a lot better. I think of, you know, I have family members with diabetes, and growing up, they would test themselves all the time, and they have to bring the strips with them and everything. And now you see a lot of people on the back of their arm, they have that little sticker on there. That's just testing their blood sugar all the time, and they just look at their phone. And it's one of those things where it's not a crazy technology. It's just literally Bluetooth, but it helps them tremendously. It can start beeping when they need to take their insulin or when they need to have some sugar. You know, it's incredible. It's incredible how something very simple can be so dramatically impactful for people with, you know, different chronic illness.
And what's interesting, based on my market research recently, what I see is market starts moving a little bit more towards simple technologies recently. I know we have, you know, AI, and we have, you know, a lot of quite complicated, revolutionary technologies coming out in recent years. But when I see, you know, what, for example, Sam Altman is investing with at the moment, you know, I think there's a simple AI solution which reminds people that struggle with ADHD on how to do things on a daily basis. You'd think it's so simple, you know, it's such a basic code, you know, create a little reminder list for people who struggle with the list. You'd think, you know, maybe a piece of paper, you know, it's a little bigger than a piece of paper, but it's that little notification and that little voice, and, you know, having that contact on regular basis is such a big change. Yet we already do notifications, we already do the list, and you think a little combination would be a little solution, yet it's such revolutionary for a lot of patients with ADHD. So it's, you know, I think the next year or the next 2-3 years will be very much about little solutions solving big problems, and I hope that we'll be able to be part of that as well.
So we are done with our questions, but I want to ask you one last question in the spirit of things, because we just released CARE trials. One thing I've been asking everyone I've been hosting, and even when I've been hosted, I like to ask, have you ever participated in a clinical trial?
I have not, I think. Let me quickly think through it. I don't think so. I do myself have chronic migraines, and I'm actually very excited for CARE trials to come by, because if there's any migraine trial out there that I am able to join, I will be the first participant out there to be a part of that. But I don't think I ever had a chance to do that yet. And I think because they're surprisingly not as accessible as you would like them to be. And, you know, with my work time of, you know, 12 to sometimes 16 hours a day, I don't really have time to do much research out there on Google and, you know, go out there. But as soon as CARE trials go out and there is a migraine trial out there, I'm telling you, I'll be the first person to sign up and to be able to participate. I would be actually quite excited on that. I would love to find out more.
Very nice. Yeah, I've always thought, back in the day, you see the advertisements for the sleep one. You know, you just come to a place and you sleep on their bed, and then they monitor you. But Douglas from BRI, his was funny. His daughter sat in front of a screen, a driving simulator, and every 30 minutes they handed her a beer, and she just had to keep driving and drinking while driving.
That is so interesting. To be fair, I think that sleeping one would be a great holiday for me. So I might sign up as part of holiday package for a week after working so many hours.
But not for me because I am writing this weekend, so no drinking for me. All right. So we have gone through all the questions. I want to thank you for joining us. Is there any last thing you'd like to say to our community?
Well, thank you for being here for us. Thank you for voicing your feedback and your comments. We're always looking at them with such a kind eye, and we're so happy to have you there. Yeah, thank you for joining. Thank you for listening to me for almost 40 minutes. I really appreciate it. I hope I made it interesting for you.
Absolutely. Okay, so we will wrap it up here. Thank you guys all for joining. We will have a recording of this on YouTube in a few days. But thank you, Agatha, for joining us. It's been a pleasure, and I know our community loved it. So, yeah, everyone have a great day, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much. See you soon.
See you soon.